The eviction notice was taped to the door like a final insult. Daniel Ruiz stood there in the hallway of his apartment complex, staring at the paper fluttering in the wind. His palms were sweating. His heart pounded in his ears, louder than the hum of the busted hallway light flickering above him. He didn't need to read it, not really. He already knew what it said. But still, he read it. Word for word. Eviction notice. 72 hours to vacate. He let out a breath that trembled all the way through his chest and leaned his head against the cool metal of the door. Behind him, a tiny voice asked, "Is that from the manager again?" Daniel turned, and there she was. Lena, 7 years old, wearing a jacket that was too thin for the weather, hugging her purple stuffed rabbit, with one ear almost torn off. He tried to smile, but it faltered. "Hey, mija, shouldn't you be coloring or something?" She looked up at him with eyes far too serious for her age. "Where are we going to sleep tonight, Dad?" There it was. The question. He crouched down, holding her arms gently. "In our bed, same as always. This is just paperwork, boring adult stuff. But it says we have to leave." "I know what it says." His voice cracked and he cleared it quickly. "But I've got a plan, okay? I'm working on something." Lena didn't nod. She just pressed her cheek into his shoulder and held on. Daniel held her back tightly, eyes shut. Later that night, he sat at the kitchen table under the buzz of a dying overhead light, flipping 9th through job listings on a borrowed laptop. The apartment was quiet, except for the occasional groan of pipes and the distant traffic of Santa Ana. Their refrigerator had stopped working last week. The floor tiles were cracked. The entire place smelled faintly of mold. He used to have real work, real clients. He had built a small photography business over the years, specializing in real estate shoots. Clean, bright interiors, aerial shots of backyards with perfect pools. But when the housing market crashed last year, so did his income. One client vanished, then another. Then the camera equipment got sold, one lens at a time. Now he had nothing but a junker laptop borrowed from a neighbor and a half-busted Canon from 2011. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, job boards. Nothing that paid quickly. And he needed money now. Not in 2 weeks. Not next month. He looked across the table at Lena asleep on the couch, arms wrapped around that same purple rabbit. Her sneakers were placed neatly beside her, like she was still pretending everything was okay. Daniel rubbed his eyes, leaned back, and whispered into the quiet. "I'm sorry, baby." The next morning, he woke up early. He packed Lena's school lunch using the last 2 slices of bread and a banana that had already turned. "You said you were gonna get a job yesterday," she reminded him at breakfast. "I said I was looking. Did you find anything?" "I found a few things." "Are they good things?" He hesitated. "They're weird things." At 9:00 a.m. sharp, after walking Lena to the school bus and waving like everything was normal, Daniel headed to the one place in town where Wi-Fi was free and nobody asked questions, the public library. He took a seat in the back where the walls smelled like forgotten encyclopedias and desperation. Around him, 6 others stared blankly into computer screens. Job hunters, gig workers, exhausted souls chasing digital ghosts. He opened the county auction site. He didn't know why. Maybe because desperation drives people toward impossible ideas. And then he saw it. A tiny, grainy photo on page 7. The kind of photo that wouldn't catch anyone's eye if they weren't looking for miracles. The listing read, "Property ID number 8229 Malibu, oceanfront, Spanish Revival, built 1945. Starting bid $5,000. Cash only as is. No inspections allowed. Buyer assumes all risk. Daniel frowned. That couldn't be real. Malibu for $5,000. There had to be a catch. He clicked through. The photo was from a distance clearly taken with a zoom lens. The house sat like a ghost on a cliff's edge, weather-worn but proud. It looked abandoned, draped in vines with shuttered windows and crumbling stairs. No interior photos, no walkthrough, no details. Just the one line that made his stomach clench, vacant since 1962. He blinked. 1962. Wasn't that the year Marilyn Monroe died? He opened a new tab. Searched Marilyn Monroe plus Malibu house. Most results pointed to her known Brentwood property, or the final home where she died. But buried in the comments of a Hollywood history forum someone had once posted, rumors say she had a secret retreat in Malibu. Somewhere the press couldn't find her. A private trust owned it. Disappeared after she died. Daniel sat back. The idea was insane, but his gut buzzed. Something about this house. Something about the date, the price, the secrecy, it all felt off. And maybe off was exactly what he needed. Back home that night, he counted every dollar he had. After pawning the last bit of jewelry from his late wife, he had $672. Nowhere near $5,000. But he had 3 days until the auction. The next 2 days were a blur of begging, borrowing, hustling. Daniel called old clients offering photo edits, rushed work, anything. One finally paid him a long overdue invoice. He sold a spare mattress, his watch, even Lena's old bike. A neighbor, Mr. Carrillo, lent him $300 in cash without asking questions. "I know how hard it is raising a kid alone," he said softly. "Just promise me you won't disappear." Daniel promised. At the end of day 2, he had $5,080, all in cash, hidden in a Tupperware container beneath a bag of frozen peas. He hadn't told Lena anything. She thought he was getting a new job. Maybe in a way he was. That night, after putting her to bed, he sat on the balcony of the apartment, with a beer he couldn't afford, staring at the city lights. His chest ached from tension. Everything about this was reckless. He was going to bet everything on a house he'd never seen inside, based on nothing but rumors and a whisper of hope. But he couldn't shake the feeling. The way the photo of the house looked like it was waiting for someone. And maybe, just maybe, that someone was him. "You're not supposed to win this." That's what the man in the tailored gray suit whispered to Daniel Ruiz, not out of spite, but like he was stating some universal truth. Like he was letting Daniel in on a secret too big for him to understand. Daniel blinked momentarily, frozen. The man's voice was calm, polite, even, but cold beneath the surface. Detached. Like someone used to making decisions other people had to live with. He didn't respond. He just stared back, gripping the bidder's paddle in his sweaty palm, the number 4117 printed on it in sharp black ink. The auction room was nothing like Daniel had expected. No drama, no buzzing tension like the housing auctions he'd seen in movies. Just a bland government building basement in downtown Los Angeles with brown carpet, flickering fluorescent lights, and about 20 metal folding chairs, half of them empty. 3 people sat near the back, clearly not bidders. One was asleep. Another was scrolling through their phone. The third might have been homeless. In the front row, a real estate agent with glossy nails whispered numbers into a Bluetooth earpiece. And Daniel, who was pretty sure his shirt still smelled faintly of fried onions from last night's gas station dinner, stood out like a neon sign. At the head of the room, a bored county official adjusted his glasses and shuffled paperwork. Next property, ID 8229, Malibu, Starting bid $5,000, no reserve. Buyer assumes all liabilities. Payment due in full by end of day. Who's bidding? Daniel raised his paddle. 5,000. The agent with the Bluetooth barely glanced up. No one else moved. The official blinked. Okay. We have 5,000. Any advance? Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. If no one else raised their hand in the next 10 seconds, that house would be his. Against all odds. But just as the man began to speak, the words, "Sold" to the door in the back, creaked open. Every head turned. In walked a tall man with silver hair, pressed slacks, and a dark gray suit that probably cost more than Daniel's car. He held a sleek black folder and a calm expression. He didn't sit, didn't look at anyone. Just walked straight to the front and handed something to the auctioneer. The county official looked at it, then nodded. The man turned around and scanned the room like he already knew who he was looking for. His eyes landed on Daniel. He smiled politely. 10,000, he said smoothly, raising a bidder's paddle that must have been handed to him outside. Daniel's throat went dry. He wasn't ready for a bidding war. He wasn't ready for this man. He raised his paddle again. 11. The man didn't blink. 15. Daniel hesitated. That was more than everything he had. He'd only budgeted to go up to 12, maybe 13 in a panic. But something in his gut screamed not to back down. Not yet. He licked his lips. 16. The man arched a brow just slightly. A curious gesture, not annoyed, more amused. He lifted his paddle once more. 20. Daniel's stomach twisted. That was it. That was the number he couldn't match. He lowered his hand slowly, eyes burning. The auctioneer was mid-sentence. We have 20,000 going once, going twice when the suited man's phone vibrated. He looked down, frowned faintly, then turned and walked out without a word. Everyone froze. The auctioneer glanced around, confused. Bidder has withdrawn. He looked back at Daniel. 16 to number 417. Daniel blinked. Yeah. Still here. The gavel slammed. Sold. And just like that, it was his. He walked out of that building in a daze, the deed in a thin envelope tucked under his arm, the receipt in his pocket, and sweat running down his back. The sun outside was too bright. The air too dry. Everything felt surreal. He couldn't believe he'd won, or that he hadn't been supposed to. Back in his car, a 2003 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield and one functioning window, Daniel sat for 5 straight minutes gripping the steering wheel. What just happened? The man in the suit. The way he appeared at the exact moment the house was about to be sold. The way he had calmly dropped 20 grand like it was nothing and then left like the auction didn't matter at all. And that voice. You're not supposed to win this. Was it a threat, a warning, or just the truth? He didn't tell Lena much that night. Just that he'd found them a place to stay by the beach. She squealed in excitement, then made him promise they'd see dolphins. Daniel smiled, trying not to look worried. Inside, he didn't feel like a winner. He felt like someone who had accidentally stepped into something bigger than he could understand. The next morning, with a printed deed and a half tank of gas, Daniel packed up their clothes, Lena's favorite blanket, and a cooler of peanut butter sandwiches. He told his landlord he'd be out by sundown. The drive to Malibu felt like crossing into another world. From the dense streets of Santa Ana to the open cliffs and winding roads of the Pacific Coast Highway, everything changed. The air, the light, even the people jogging beside the beach looked like they lived in a different reality. Lena stared out the window the whole time, eyes wide. "It's like a movie, Dad." He nodded. "Yeah, maybe it is." His GPS led them up a private road just north of El Matador Beach. The pavement cracked the higher they climbed. Trees arched overhead. The world grew quieter. Finally, he reached a rusted iron gate, padlocked but hanging loose on its hinges. He stepped out, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. Lena looked up. "Is this it?" He nodded. The gate bore no name, just peeling white paint and a small brass number, 63. The property sat on the edge of the cliff, ocean spray visible through the trees. The house beyond the gate was half covered in ivy, 2 stories of faded Spanish tile, arched windows, and time-worn beauty. He unlocked the gate and drove in slowly, the wheels bouncing over roots and stone. They parked beside what might have once been a fountain. Now it was dry and full of leaves. The air was still. No neighbors nearby. No sounds but waves crashing far below. Daniel took Lena's hand. "Ready," she nodded. Together they stepped onto the front porch. The door was warped. The wood faded and soft in places. He turned the key. It creaked open with the groan of 60 years of silence. Dust danced in the sunlight, pouring through a broken window. Sheets covered old furniture like ghosts standing in the room. A staircase curved upward with iron rails. Somewhere deeper in the house, something shifted, a soft sound, like settling. Lena whispered, "Is someone here?" Daniel held still. He didn't know. He stepped forward anyway. What he didn't see just outside the gate was a sleek black car parked beneath a tree. Engine still running. Tinted windows hiding a man inside, watching them through binoculars. The man dialed a number and spoke calmly. "He got the house," he said, "just like we knew he would." A pause. "Yes. I'm watching them now. It feels like someone meant to come back." That's what Lena whispered as she stood just inside the doorway, her voice almost drowned by the distant sound of waves crashing below the cliff. She didn't say it like a scared kid. She said it like she knew something, felt something. Daniel stood a few steps ahead of her, scanning the dim, dust-cloaked interior of the house. He didn't respond. He was too busy trying to convince himself this wasn't a mistake. It smelled like old wood sea air and something else, something faintly sweet, like aging perfume that had soaked into the curtains over decades. The floorboards creaked under their feet. Cobwebs webbed the corners of the vaulted ceiling. Furniture sat under yellowed sheets like it had been tucked in for a very long nap. But everything was intact. Not vandalized. Not looted. It was as if the house had simply been paused, not abandoned. As if someone had stepped out for groceries and just never came back. Daniel moved through the foyer, slowly trailing his fingers along the edge of an old sideboard covered in a thick layer of dust. When he pressed lightly, the wood beneath revealed a dark, rich grain, expensive. "Stay close," he said over his shoulder. Lena followed without protest, her sneakers quiet on the wooden floor. The living room opened up into a wide space with arched windows, most cracked, a few shattered, that looked straight out onto the Pacific. The view was stunning. Even now, with the house in ruins, the sunlight bounced off the water and painted the peeling walls gold. Daniel pulled down a sheet from what turned out to be a vintage velvet couch. Dust exploded into the air, making him cough. But beneath the grime, the fabric was remarkably preserved, deep red, tufted classic. He ran his hand across it, half in disbelief. This wasn't some beach shack. This had been a sanctuary. He wandered into what must have once been a music room. A baby grand piano stood near the window, the lid closed, keys untouched. A crystal ashtray sat beside it full of lipstick-stained cigarette butts. Nearby, an empty champagne glass leaned slightly on its side, frozen in place by time and grime. Lena picked up a small framed photo from a side table, rubbing it clean with her sleeve. "Who's this?" she asked. Daniel looked. The photo was faded but unmistakable. A woman in a white halter dress, laughing mid-spin, hair blowing wild in the breeze. His mouth went dry. It wasn't just anyone. It was her. Marilyn. He took the photo from Lena, gently staring at it. Not a posed studio shot. Not a film still. This was candid, natural. It looked like something a lover might have taken on a weekend by the sea. He glanced at the back. No date. No writing. His chest tightened. "I think this used to be her house," he murmured. "Who's Lena?" asked. He looked at her, hesitated. "A famous actress. From a long time ago." They moved on deeper into the house. The kitchen was dated but grand. A massive fridge that hadn't run in years. An oven with dials in cursive script, pink and chrome everywhere. There were still dishes in the sink. But the real weight of the house hit upstairs. The hallway creaked with every step. At the end of it was the master bedroom, double doors arched like a chapel. Daniel pushed them open slowly. The room was a time capsule. A king-sized canopy bedsheet still tucked in military style. A vanity cluttered with half-used makeup. A record player. Silk robes slung carelessly over a velvet chaise. And on the vanity something delicate caught the light. A silver hairbrush. He picked it up. 3 long blonde hairs were still tangled in the bristles. Daniel stood there staring at it, breath held. It was all too much. Too intimate. Too real. He sat down heavily on the bed, sending up a small cloud of dust. He placed the brush back where he found it. His hand shook slightly. Lena climbed onto the bed beside him, cross-legged, silent. He looked around again. This wasn't just any mansion. This was personal. It had character, soul, ghosts maybe, but not the bad kind. The kind that whispered instead of screamed. In the corner of the room was a large walk-in closet. The door stuck at first, but Daniel forced it open with a grunt. Inside were racks of vintage dresses wrapped in plastic, untouched for decades. He ran his fingers over one, a delicate white evening gown, sleeveless, low back. It shimmered faintly in the dim light. Something about it made his stomach twist. There was also a faint draft in the closet. Cold air, subtle but there. He leaned closer to the back wall, frowning. It wasn't even, it jutted out slightly like a patch job. When he knocked on it, the sound was different. Hollow. He turned to Lena, who was peeking around the doorframe. "Go back downstairs, baby," he said softly. "Why, I just want to check something." She didn't argue. Just gave him a look that said she was pretending to be brave. Daniel returned a few minutes later with a flashlight and a small crowbar he'd found in the garage. He started prying gently at the edges of the wall. The drywall cracked. Dust poured out. After 20 minutes of careful work, he exposed a narrow rectangular opening. Behind it, a door. Smaller than the closet door. Made of thick, dark wood with an old brass knob. He hesitated, then turned it. It creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase that curled down into the dark, swallowed quickly by shadow. The air that came out was cold and still. It didn't smell like the rest of the house. It smelled sterile, sealed. He leaned into the space, shining the flashlight down the stone steps. A heavy silence pressed on his chest. He didn't go down. Not yet. Instead, he backed out, pulled the closet door shut, and turned to find Lena sitting on the bed with her rabbit in her lap. "What was in there?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Just storage." But his hands were shaking. That night, after Lena fell asleep on a makeshift bed in the living room, Daniel sat on the back porch staring out at the moonlight dancing on the waves. The ocean had never felt so loud. He opened his laptop, connected to his phone's hotspot, and typed a name into the search bar: Dr. Elizabeth Chen Monroe Archives. She'd written a dozen books, taught at UCLA, led a preservation group that focused on forgotten women of early Hollywood. If anyone could help him understand what this place was, or who it belonged to, it was her. He drafted a message. "Hi, Dr. Chen. I recently acquired a property that might be connected to Marilyn Monroe. There are personal items here. Journals, clothing, maybe more. I think you should see this." He hesitated, then hit send. From the woods above the house, behind a veil of trees, the man in the black car lowered his binoculars. He dialed again. "He found the door," he said. "It won't be long now." No one was ever supposed to see this. Daniel didn't say the words out loud. He just felt them. In the air. In the silence. In the way his flashlight beam barely penetrated the thick dark of the spiral staircase beneath the closet floor. He stood at the top step, one hand gripping the banister, the other holding the light, its circle trembling slightly as it moved along the stone wall. The stairs twisted downward into nothingness. Cold air drifted up from below, dry, untouched, different from the sea breeze rolling through the rest of the house. He'd put Lena to bed already, tucked under a sleeping bag in the living room. The house was too quiet, too large, and too haunted by time to feel like a home even now. But she'd fallen asleep quickly, her stuffed rabbit curled against her chest, and Daniel, he had waited. Until the house had gone still again. Until he was alone with the truth. He closed the closet door behind him, gripping the flashlight tighter. One foot on the stair, then the next, then down. Each step echoed louder than the last. The spiral was narrow, built of rough stone, the walls damp and curved. The deeper he went, the more the temperature dropped. It wasn't moldy or rotten. It wasn't even musty. It smelled clean, like preservation. The air had been sealed for a very milestone. After what felt like 2 full stories down, the staircase ended in a small square landing. A heavy steel door stood in front of him. Old, reinforced, painted beige with a rusted handle and combination dial. Daniel stared at it. There was no way this door wasn't installed by professionals. Who the hell builds a vault under a beach house? He ran his hand over the dial. No clue. No numbers scratched into the wall. No code written on nearby surfaces. He stepped back, looked around the landing. Nothing. But then he noticed it, a small square metal panel near the baseboard. It looked newer than the rest. Carefully, he pried it open with the edge of his flashlight. Inside was a single sheet of yellowed paper. Vault code 241862. For emergency use only. God help us if it comes to this. He swallowed, then turned back to the door. 24/18/62. August 4th, 1962. The day Marilyn Monroe was pronounced dead. Daniel's stomach turned, but his fingers moved before he could second guess. The dial clicked smoothly. The locking mechanism groaned, and then with a hiss, the vault door released. He pulled it open. The smell hit him first, dry, cold, metallic, like a museum sealed off from the world. The room inside was bigger than he expected, maybe 20 feet across. Concrete floor, exposed pipes in the ceiling, a few flickering utility lights still functional, thanks to an old generator humming faintly in the corner. Along the walls were racks and shelves, Metal boxes, file cabinets, storage containers sealed with wax. In the center, a steel table. On top of it, a vintage film canister. He approached slowly, heart-pounding, breath shallow. There were labels on everything. Typed, not handwritten. Folders marked with Monroe's name. Others labeled with studio logos, Paramount, MGM, Columbia. Photographs were pinned to corkboards under glass, candid shots, some taken in familiar poses, others clearly never meant for public eyes. One photo showed Marilyn walking barefoot through the same beach outside the house, wearing a robe and laughing at something off camera. Daniel's head spun. He had found something impossible. He turned the canister over. The label read AUG-4, Final Session. Do not duplicate property of SG. Archive. Copy 1-1. Who the hell was SG? He opened it slowly. Inside was a reel of 16mm film. It looked pristine, untouched. He gently placed it back, hands trembling, and began to scan the rest of the vault. There were letters, dozens of them addressed to someone named Jay. Some typed, some handwritten in looping cursive that looked like it belonged in a love story. He read snatches of one aloud, barely audible. Sometimes I think if I vanished, they'd only miss the idea of me. Not me. Not Norma. Daniel exhaled slowly. These weren't just studio records. They were personal. And someone had gone to extreme lengths to keep them sealed but not destroyed, which meant someone had hoped they'd be found one day. He moved to a corner shelf, finding a large leather-bound journal with initials stamped in gold leaf, NJM. Norma Jean Mortensen. Marilyn's birth name. The first page was blank. So was the second. Then a line in faded blue ink. I can feel them watching again. I don't know if I'm paranoid or if I'm finally right. There were entries, dozens of them, detailed, rambling, frightened, mentions of phone taps, men in cars, studio threats, and names' initials, references to things Daniel didn't understand yet. But he would. He had to. Because this wasn't just gossip. This was testimony. Daniel sat on the floor for what felt like hours, reading, cataloging, photographing pages with his phone. He didn't touch everything. Some boxes were sealed too tightly, others labeled in red ink, private, eyes only, CF. One stood out, a black leather box, locked, no markings. He didn't try to open it. Not yet. But he knew it mattered. Everything in here mattered. And the more he looked, the more he understood. This was bigger than Monroe. Bigger than the house. Bigger than him. The old generator started to sputter. Lights flickered once. Then again. Daniel stood quickly. He snapped a few more photos, then shut the vault door gently and climbed back up the stairs, heart still pounding. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in the kitchen staring at his phone. The photos he'd taken were insane, unbelievable, priceless, too big to keep to himself. At 2:11 a.m., he got a reply from Dr. Elizabeth Chen. If this is authentic, you've just uncovered the most significant piece of 20th century American history no one was ever meant to find. I'll be on a plane tomorrow. Do not tell anyone else. And for God's sake, don't open the film. Daniel stared at the message, then at the hallway, then down the stairs to where Lena slept. He knew the moment he unlocked that vault, life had changed, but he didn't know how quickly the world would come knocking. Outside, across the road, the man in the black car lit a cigarette with steady hands. He didn't need binoculars anymore. He had eyes on the house. And now he knew what the boy had found. He raised his phone and made a single call. "It's confirmed," he said. The vault was opened. A pause. "Yes. We'll handle it. If this is real, you're sitting on a ticking bomb." Dr. Elizabeth Chen said it quietly, like she was afraid the walls might hear her. She stood in the center of the living room, flipping through a handful of black and white photographs Daniel had printed from his phone that morning. Her hands moved with care, almost reverence, but her brow was furrowed deep. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Daniel watched her from the kitchen archway, arms crossed. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "I told you it was big," he said. She didn't look up. "You told me you found old stuff." "Memorabilia. This is something else." "I did find old stuff, just the wrong kind." She glanced over her shoulder. "This isn't wrong. It's dangerous." She had arrived 2 hours ago, stepping out of a rideshare in jeans boots and a faded UCLA hoodie, her graying hair tied into a neat bun. She carried one small suitcase and a messenger bag full of tools, notepads, gloves, a USB microscope, and a voice recorder. When she'd entered the house, she'd paused in the doorway, breathing in the stale, ocean-touched air. "She was here," she'd said softly. "You can feel it." Daniel had taken her on a fast tour. The living room, the kitchen, the piano room, with the champagne glass still collecting dust. Her gaze had moved across everything like a scanner, quiet, focused, already taking mental notes. But it wasn't until he led her upstairs into the closet and down the hidden staircase that her posture changed. When they opened the vault together, Dr. Chen had actually whispered, "Jesus." Now back upstairs, she paced the living room floor like a prosecutor building a case holding a photocopy of the letter Marilyn had written. "If you're reading this, then they finally got me." She stopped. This handwriting matches verified samples from her personal collection in the Smithsonian. But this entry, this line, it's never been seen before. No record. Not in any estate archive, which means it was either hidden or buried. Daniel nodded slowly. "There's more. Tapes. A black box I haven't opened. A reel of 6 film." She turned to face him, suddenly serious. "And what's on the film I don't know." "Then don't open it." "Not yet. Not until we know who's watching." Daniel stiffened. "What do you mean, who's watching?" Dr. Chen crossed the room and pulled back one of the thick, dust-caked curtains, peeking through a sliver in the window. This house was never meant to be found again. It was erased, no tax record, no renovations filed, no electric bills. That takes money and purpose. So you think it was a cover-up? I think it was a burial of her past, and maybe of something else. She let the curtain fall and turned to him. "If this is real, and I believe it is, then you're sitting on a ticking bomb, Daniel. Not a treasure. And bombs attract people you don't want knocking." Just as the words left her mouth, a knock came. 3 sharp raps on the front door. They both froze. Daniel reached for the fireplace poker, gripping it like a bat. Dr. Chen didn't move. Another knock. Then a pause. Then a voice, calm, professional. "Mr. Ruiz, I'm Everett Blackwood. May I have a moment of your time?" Daniel didn't answer. "I'm with the Monroe Estate Advisory Board," the man continued. "We understand you recently acquired this property through auction. There seems to have been an oversight in the transfer process. This house and its contents may be subject to recovery under private trust law." Chen's eyes went wide. She mouthed, "Don't open it." Daniel hesitated, stepped closer to the door. "I don't know who you are. We're not here to make trouble." Blackwood said smoothly. In fact, we're prepared to offer a financial resolution, one that could benefit your daughter. I believe her name is Lena Daniels. Blood ran cold. He turned to Chen. How the hell does he know Lena's name? She whispered. Because he's not some lawyer. He's someone who's been watching this house longer than you've owned it. 10 minutes later, Everett Blackwood sat on the edge of the dusty velvet couch, looking completely at ease in the middle of a decaying mansion. He wore the same gray suit Daniel had seen at the auction, a crisp white shirt and cufflinks shaped like tiny eagles. He smiled like a man offering charity. I want to be very clear, he began, folding his hands. We're not here to threaten or scare you. This is a negotiation. Chen didn't respond. Daniel stood behind her, jaw clenched. We represent interests tied to the preservation of Marilyn Monroe's legacy. Interests that span across decades and individuals, some of whom are still very active in public life. You mean politicians? Chen said flatly. I mean people who don't like surprises, Blackwood replied. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a check. Set it on the coffee table. It was blank. Fill in a number, he said. Walk away. Let us take care of what's downstairs. No questions. No drama. Your daughter gets a future. You get peace. Daniel stared at the check like it might catch fire. Then you were at the auction. Blackwood nodded. I was sent to ensure this house didn't end up in the wrong hands. And when I won, I left to get authorization to make this offer. Chen scoffed. Authorization from who? The ghosts, Blackwood smiled without humor. You want to publish this, expose it. Good luck. You'll get lawsuits, threats, defamation suits. You'll be ruined. And the story, it'll die in court filings. Daniel stepped forward. This isn't just some scandal. This is truth. Her truth. Blackwood didn't flinch. That may be, but truth doesn't matter if no one believes it, or if it never makes it out of discovery. He stood smoothing his jacket. Take the check. Think it over. I'll give you 24 hours. After that, the offer disappears. He left the house without another word. The silence he left behind was suffocating. Chen finally exhaled. He's not bluffing. That man's done this before. Daniel paced the living room, fists clenched. They've been watching me since the auction. Maybe longer. We need protection, she said. Legal protection. Backup. There's only one person I know who might take this fight. Daniel raised a brow, Tanya Graves, Chen said. Civil rights lawyer went up against media giants, won a Freedom of Information case against the federal government. If anyone knows how to keep you from getting buried in red tape, it's her. Daniel nodded. Call her. Chen already had her phone out. I just hope she picks up. That night, Daniel lay awake on the couch with Lena sleeping beside him, curled into his side. Her breathing was soft, steady. She had no idea her world was now orbiting a secret that powerful people would pay to erase. He reached over and pulled the blanket tighter around her, then looked out the window again. A car was parked across the road. Headlights off. Waiting. They don't threaten you when they want you gone. They make you disappear. Daniel said it to himself quietly as he stared at the shattered rear window of his car the next morning. The glass glittered on the gravel driveway like frost. Nothing stolen. Nothing moved. Just broken. A message clear and cold. They hadn't even bothered to hide it. He'd woken early before Lena stirred, needing air, needing to feel something that made sense. But the moment he stepped outside and saw the window, his stomach sank. Not a robbery. Not kids. A warning. Inside, Dr. Chen was already on the phone with Tanya Graves pacing barefoot through the kitchen, one hand gripping her coffee mug like it was an anchor. Daniel heard the tail end of the conversation. No, he didn't take the money. He's smarter than that. But they're escalating. Yeah. We need you here. Today if you can. She hung up and met Daniel's eyes. She's coming. Daniel gave a tight nod. Good. We'll need her. Chen walked outside, took one look at the car and muttered, subtle. I don't think they're trying to be subtle anymore. They're testing you, poking the edges, seeing if you scare. I'm scared, Daniel admitted. But I'm not selling. Chen didn't smile, but he saw respect flicker behind her eyes. Tanya Graves arrived by early afternoon in a rental car, all business. Tall, sharp-featured, with a voice like steel wrapped in silk. She stepped into the living room, took one long look around, and said, So this is where the ghost lives. Daniel offered her coffee. She waved it off. What I need is a locked room, a printer, and every document you found downstairs. Scanned, backed up, twice. They got to work immediately. Tanya set up her laptop, asked for internet access. Chen handed her a portable hotspot and began sorting through the scans Daniel had made. The photos, the letters, the journal entries. She read in silence for 30 minutes, not looking up once. Then, if this is real, you're not just dealing with Monroe's estate. You're dealing with Cold War relics, possibly FBI activity, and studio-era cover-ups tied to real power. Not just old gossip. This could threaten legacies, families, fortunes. Chen nodded. That's what I've been saying. Daniel sat at the kitchen counter watching the two women work, feeling like he'd just opened a lion's cage and tossed away the key. Tanya turned to him. Do you know what's in the black box? No. I haven't opened it. You should. I was waiting for someone who knew what they were doing. She gestured toward it. Get it. Now. The black box was heavier than Daniel remembered. Solid leather casing, reinforced edges, no markings. He placed it gently on the dining room table. Chen slid on gloves. Tanya used a pocket knife to pop the lock. Inside a stack of sealed envelopes, a small reel-to-reel tape and a manila folder stamped Property of SG. Personal. Chen drew in a breath. SG could be Sam Giancana. Daniel blinked. The mob boss Marilyn was rumored to have ties. Through Sinatra, through Kennedy. There's a web of speculation. But this is confirmation someone was documenting it. Tanya opened the folder. Inside were transcribed phone calls, surveillance photos, and coded memos. One document caught her attention, dated August 3, 1962, just one day before Monroe's death. It read, Subject contacted J via direct line. Report indicates increased paranoia. Mentions threats recording equipment. Subject may be attempting to secure items off-site. Night activity observed at Malibu property. Contact W for immediate sweep authorization. Daniel felt his blood chill. Subject is her, he said. Tanya nodded. And W might be William Sullivan, FBI. That would make J either Joe DiMaggio or JFK. Chen leaned forward. She was trying to hide something here. That's why the vault exists. She knew they were coming. Daniel whispered. She built her own grave. No, Chen said. She built a message in a bottle. And you're the one who opened it. The reel-to-reel tape was labeled only with a date, August 3, 1962, midnight. Daniel and Chen found an old player in the upstairs closet, half broken but still functional. Tanya inspected it for bugs just in case, then gave a nod. They threaded the tape, held their breath, and pressed play. The hiss of static. Then a woman's voice. Shaky. Whispering. Terrified. They were outside again. I saw the car. I know what they're doing. If anything happens to me, if I disappear, it wasn't pills. I didn't give up. I didn't lose my mind. They want me silent. The room went still. It was unmistakably her. Marilyn Monroe. The voice that had flirted with presidents and dazzled a generation was now stripped bare. No glamour, just fear. I gave everything I had to the world. But it's not enough. They want secrets. They want what I know, but I won't give it to them. Not like this. Not without a fight. The tape clicked. Ended. No one spoke for a full minute. Then Tanya whispered, "Holy shit." Chen wiped at her eye. Daniel stood slowly. Now you understand why I couldn't take the money. That night, Daniel stepped out onto the back porch for air. He stood at the railing watching the moon over the water. His mind was spinning. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him. Not until the man said, "You're in over your head." Daniel turned fast, startled. It wasn't Blackwood. This man was younger, cleaner, black jacket, close-cropped hair, cold eyes, government cold. Daniel's body went tense. "Who are you?" "Someone who can still help you walk away from this." "I'm not walking." The man stepped closer, voice low. "You think this is about one woman, about some lost tapes. This house is part of a chain, Ruiz. A long one. A buried one. And the people at the top, they don't make noise when they want something gone. They don't send checks. They don't threaten." Daniel's chest tightened. "Then what do? They erase." The man held out a USB drive. "Here's your last chance. This file shows what happens to people who keep digging. Take it. Watch it. Then decide." He turned and disappeared into the dark. Daniel stood there for a long time, the ocean roaring beneath him, the USB drive like poison in his hand. When he went back inside, Tanya and Chen were still awake. "We need to go public," he said. "Now. Tonight." Tanya nodded grimly. "Then let's make them regret leaving you alive this long. If they can't silence the story, they'll silence the storytellers." Tanya said it with the dead certainty of someone who'd been there before, courtrooms, threats, deals made in shadowed rooms. But this time, even she looked rattled. Daniel sat on the living room floor, laptop open on the dusty rug, scanning the last batch of files they'd decided to send. The final dump. The story, her story, prepared and packaged, ready to hit 6 encrypted inboxes, belonging to journalists Tanya trusted with her life. "We push this button," Daniel said, "and everything changes. Which is why they'll try to stop us before we do," Chen added. She paced the room, arms folded tightly over her chest. The plan was simple: distribute everything. The vault photos, the journal, the letter, the real recording Marilyn had made herself, the evidence of surveillance, the black boxes files. The original deeds showing the property had been ghost-owned by a shell company since 1962. All of it. They weren't waiting for the news cycle. They were about to become it. The internet connection was weak, powered by Chen's hotspot, but it held steady. Tanya sat beside Daniel, double-checking attachments and file names. "You sure about the journalists?" he asked. "I worked with them on the Panama Papers," she replied. "One's in New York, 2 overseas, 1 in D.C., and the other 2. Let's say they know what to do when fire hits the fan." Chen looked out the window, the ocean mist blurring the glass. "This house doesn't feel safe anymore." "It never was," Tanya muttered. "We were just pretending." Daniel's eyes shifted toward the hallway. Lena was still asleep on the pull-out couch, bundled in her favorite blanket, Bunny clutched tight in her arms. He wanted her gone from here, wanted all of them gone. But they were too close now, too far in to back out. He clicked the mouse. The files began uploading. Outside, thunder cracked. Except, it wasn't thunder. The lights flickered, then went out. Daniel stood instantly. The generator. Tanya pulled her phone out. Hotspot's dead. No, 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 Daniel muttered, smacking the laptop. The upload. Froze, Chen said, peering over his shoulder. 12%. Then nothing. Tanya moved fast, pulling the shades. We're blind. They cut power and signal. Daniel grabbed the flashlight and headed for the back door. I'll check the generator. Chen caught his arm. You shouldn't go alone. I have to. If they're jamming us, we've got minutes before they come. Tanya handed him her backup burner phone. Use this if you can. Only number saved is mine. He nodded and slipped out the back. The generator was housed in a rusted metal shed near the cliffside. The wind howled louder out here. Daniel could barely hear his footsteps over the waves and the pounding in his chest. He rounded the corner and stopped dead. The shed door hung open. The generator's casing was smashed, wires yanked and strewn across the dirt. Someone had killed it by hand. He turned to run, and that's when he saw the figure standing at the tree line. Black coat. Motionless. Watching. Daniel didn't wait to see more. He sprinted back toward the house. Inside, Tanya had already pulled Lena into the hallway, whispering calming words into her ear, while Chen barricaded the front door with an old armoire. The laptop was closed. The house was in darkness except for flashlights casting pale circles across the floor. They're here, Daniel said as he burst through the back. How many? Tanya asked. I saw one. Doesn't mean there aren't more. Chen cursed. We need to get out. Not without the story, Tanya said. We finish the upload or it all dies here. Daniel thought for a second. We need a signal. Something they can't jam. Tanya blinked. Satellite. Chen raised an eyebrow. Unless you've got a military drone in your back pocket, no. Daniel cut in, but my old friend Omar, he's got a ham radio rig, strong enough to bounce signal off the damn moon if you wanted. Where is he? San Pedro? That's an hour away if the roads are clear. If they're not watching every exit already. Tanya looked between them. So what, we split up? No, Daniel said. I go. I'll take the USB. You two stay here with Lena. Lock the house, hide if you have to. Chen stepped forward. Daniel, you don't even know what you're walking into. I know. That's why I go. They'll expect me to run with the story. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Tanya reached into her bag and handed him a small fireproof envelope. Everything's copied here. Double encrypted. If you don't make it, Omar can broadcast. And if they catch you, burn it. Daniel nodded, heart pounding. Lena ran up and grabbed his hand. Daddy, don't go, he knelt, kissed her forehead. I have to, baby. But I'll come back. I promise. You always say that, and I always do. She squeezed his fingers tight. Take Bunny, for luck. He smiled and tucked the small plush rabbit into his jacket pocket. Luck accepted. Daniel slipped out the garage using the shadows to move down the private road. The Civic was dead glass still on the seats, but Tanya had a rental parked behind the trees. He slid into the driver's seat, inserted the key, and exhaled. The dashboard glowed. The engine rumbled to life. One road, one shot. He pulled away slowly, headlights off, coasting downhill until he hit pavement. Then he floored it. Back at the house, Tanya bolted the doors. Chen watched from the upstairs window. She saw them this time, two figures circling the house from opposite sides. Calm, coordinated. She whispered, "They're not trying to break in. They're waiting." For what Tanya asked from below. For us to panic. In the car, Daniel sped through Pacific Coast fog, eyes flicking between the road and the rear view. So far, no one was following. Omar's workshop was in the back of an old bait shop. Daniel knew the code to the side gate. They'd built pirate radio sets here in high school, back when rebellion meant pranks, not whistleblowing national secrets. He pulled up, jumped out, and banged on the metal door. It opened within seconds. Omar was older now, rounder, but his eyes still sparked with chaos. "Damn, man," he said. "When you said urgent, I didn't think you meant black helicopters urgent." "No time," Daniel said, pulling the envelope from his jacket. "We need to send this." "Satellite bounce. Every journalist you've got on speed dial." Omar whistled. "This better not get me killed." Daniel looked him dead in the eye. "If it doesn't, we didn't do it right." An hour later, the files were broadcasting fragments sent in random order across random bands stitched with cryptographic handshakes that only Tanya's people would recognize. When the final file pinged success, Daniel slumped against the wall, drained. "You did it," Omar said. Daniel nodded. "Now I just need to get home." But home wasn't quiet anymore. Because while Daniel was in San Pedro, someone had gotten inside. Tanya and Chen had found the back door pried open, a silent breach. No alarms, no smashed furniture. Just a single page left on the kitchen table. One of Marilyn's journal entries, but not one they'd found in the vault. This one was new, typed on modern paper, and at the bottom in red ink. She knew the truth. So do you. Walk away. What if the real threat isn't outside? But already inside, Tanya stood at the edge of the kitchen, the page still in her hand, the red ink bleeding slightly at the bottom from her grip. Her voice was low, hard. Chen stared at the doorframe where the lock had been expertly forced, clean, quiet, surgical. They didn't come to steal. They came to say something. No, Tanya replied. They came to remind us. They can reach us whenever they want. The house, already heavy with secrets, now felt smaller, airless. Every floorboard creak made them flinch. Lena sat curled on the couch, wide-eyed and silent, watching the adults like they were characters in a movie she didn't understand, yet knew was about to get very bad. Dr. Chen picked up the page and examined it under the flashlight. The paper's new, modern, ink's not even smudged. That means someone printed it just before breaking in. Tanya muttered, which means they've got access to the original, or a copy we didn't find. Daniel hadn't returned yet. He'd called 15 minutes ago to say the files were sent from Omar's rig, safe and confirmed. But he hadn't heard about the break-in. Tanya tapped her phone. Still no bars. We're cut off. Chen turned toward her slowly. We were careful. We scanned everything. The vault was untouched before we entered it. We controlled every file. Tanya's jaw clenched. Unless someone helped us scan it. Someone who wanted a copy for themselves. Chen blinked. You think one of us? The silence that followed was enough. Tanya turned toward the stairwell. Where's Marco? They found him outside, standing just past the tree line, smoking. Marco Daniel's old friend from his warehouse job, a quiet, unassuming guy who'd shown up yesterday to help out. He said he wanted to protect Daniel and Lena. He'd known Daniel for years, but now under the moonlight, his face looked different, sharper, more alert. Chen stepped forward. "You always smoke at the edge of the woods." Marco didn't turn. "Less wind here. Don't like the smoke blowing into the house." Tanya stepped beside her. "How long were you out here?" 10 minutes. Needed space. During a blackout, during a break-in, and during a full lockdown, he flicked the cigarette to the ground, turned slowly. "What are you saying?" "We're saying the house got breached while you were conveniently not in it." "I was on the back side. Didn't hear anything." Tanya stared at him for a long time, then held up the printed page. "Recognize this." His face didn't flinch, but something in his eyes did. Chen saw it. "You've been in the vault," she said quietly. "No, you made a copy. I haven't touched anything. You knew exactly what was in that house before Daniel even bought it." He said nothing. Tanya stepped forward, voice hard. "Are you working with Blackwood or someone else?" Finally Marco spoke. "I'm not your enemy, but you're not playing a game anymore. You're provoking something you don't understand." Chen snapped. "Then help us understand." He looked between them. "You think exposing this will change anything? You think people care about a dead actress and her secrets? You're playing with fire that was never meant to be yours." And yet Tanya said coldly, "Here you are." He didn't deny it, didn't offer a name, didn't explain how he got involved. But he turned and walked back toward the house, quiet, solemn. When Daniel returned an hour later, Tanya met him at the door with the printed journal page and the truth about Marco. Daniel's face went blank. "I trusted him," he said. "He never betrayed you directly," Tanya said. "But he was watching. Maybe not for them, but not entirely for us either." Chen joined them. "He knows what's in the vault, more than he should. I think he was meant to make sure nothing dangerous got out." Daniel looked around. "Where is he now in the basement?" Tanya said. "He's not locked up. Yet." Lena stepped forward from the hallway. "I heard him on the phone. Last night." They all turned to her. "I was going to get water and I heard him whispering outside. I thought it was nothing." Tanya crouched beside her. "Do you remember what he said?" Lena nodded. "He said, 'It's almost done. They won't push it.'" Daniel's jaw tensed. "They were expecting us to fold." Tanya rose. "But we didn't. We pushed back." And now Chen asked, "Now they'll push harder." Later that night, Daniel entered the basement alone. Marco sat on a folding chair staring at the floor, his hands clasped. "You lied to me," Daniel said. "All this time." "I never lied," Marco replied. "I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." "No," Marco said. "It's worse." Daniel approached slowly. "How long have you known about the house years? Why didn't you tell me? Because if I did, you wouldn't have bought it. And someone else would have. Someone who'd take the money. Who'd burn it all." Daniel sat across from him. "Why me?" "Because you're poor. You're stubborn. You're too broke to sell out and too angry to shut up. You were the perfect accident." Daniel stared at him. "You used me." Marco didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "You ever wonder why the house sat unsold for so long? Why no one touched it? Why it showed up at your auction in a place it didn't belong?" Daniel froze. "I was the one who listed it," Marco said. "Under an alias. I buried it in the auction site. I rigged the process. so you would win. Daniel stood furious. You set me up to expose it. Why? Because someone had to, and I couldn't. Daniel stepped back, shaking. So all this time you let me walk into the lion's den while you watched. I walked in too. But you knew where the teeth were. Marco finally met his eyes. And you're still standing. That's something. Daniel turned without another word. Upstairs, Tanya and Chen were making a decision. We can't stay here anymore, Tanya said. They've made their move. The house isn't safe. Chen nodded. We relocate. Split up the materials. Let the media storm do the work. We go wide, Tanya said. Force them to chase shadows instead of us. Daniel returned and agreed. We leave at first light. Take different cars. Lena goes with Chen. I'll handle Marco. No, Tanya said. You don't owe him anything. I'm not leaving loose ends. That night, Lena sat at the windowsill hugging her rabbit. She whispered, Is the house going to disappear like she did? Daniel sat beside her. The house will always be here, but soon everyone will know what happened here. Even the bad guys, especially them. She nodded. Good. They should be scared too. Outside, a black SUV pulled away from the far end of the road. Inside, Blackwood listened to a voice on speaker. They're moving. Splitting. Probably distributing files. What about the girl? The voice asked. Blackwood looked at a photo on his lap, Lena smiling beside Daniel at a beach. He said nothing, just ended the call, and drove into the night. They won't come after the truth. They'll come after who you love. The sun had barely cracked the horizon when Daniel double-checked the bags in the trunk. Files were split across multiple drives disguised as harmless documents, family photos, old receipts, tax returns from years ago. Tanya had taught him how to layer encryption beneath the mundane. But it wasn't the files Daniel was worried about now. It was Lena. She sat in the back seat of Chen's car, hugging her knees, her small frame swallowed by the oversized hoodie she refused to take off. Her rabbit was in her lap. The ears were frayed. One of the button eyes had popped loose. You good, baby? Daniel asked, crouching down next to the car. She nodded, but didn't smile. I don't like leaving you. I'll be okay, he said. This is just for a couple days. Dr. Chen is going to take care of you. You remember what we talked about? Don't talk to strangers. Don't use the hotel phone. Don't say my name if anyone asks. He smiled gently. That's my girl. Lena grabbed his hand, pulled him close. Promise you'll find me. Daniel held her tight. No matter what. Chen leaned on the hood, arms crossed. You sure about this split? Tanya nodded from the second car. We scatter. We distract. We survive. Daniel stood. Where are you going? West. Back toward the city. I've got a contact at the Chronicle waiting to meet. Chen adjusted her glasses. We'll head north. Quiet town off-grid. My niece has a cabin. No digital anything. And Marco? Tanya asked. Daniel looked toward the garage. He hadn't decided yet. They left within the hour. Tanya pulled out first, disappearing down the long coastal road. Chen followed with Lena. Daniel waited until the dust from their wheels had settled into silence. Then he walked into the garage. Marco sat on a folding chair, same spot as the night before, hands on his knees, eyes focused on a grease stain on the floor. You gonna kill me? He asked. No, Daniel replied. But I should. Marco didn't flinch. I wouldn't blame you. Daniel stepped closer. Why the hell did you use me? Because they don't expect you to matter, Marco said. That's what makes you dangerous. I didn't ask for this. And yet here you are. Daniel tossed a burner phone on the table. You're gonna stay off grid. No calls, no noise. When this blows up, they'll come looking for you too. I can handle myself. Daniel gave a cold laugh. No, you can't. But Lena can't afford for you to screw this up. Marco looked up. She's the reason you're still doing this. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. He left the house an hour later driving Tanya's backup car, a beat-up Honda with stolen plates and a gas tank barely over a quarter. He took the long road south, avoiding major highways, keeping to the curves of the coastline. His plan was simple: draw attention. Let them chase him. He checked the rear view every 5 minutes. At first, nothing. But after 2 hours, a black SUV appeared 3 cars back. Tinted windows. Same make, same model. He kept driving. 30 minutes later, it was still there. When Daniel finally pulled off the road at a gas station in a dusty town no one had ever heard of, the SUV didn't stop. It cruised past slowly, then disappeared over the next hill. But Daniel didn't breathe easy. They were probing, testing how far they could push without getting seen. He bought a burner coffee and sat on the curb thinking. Meanwhile, in the cabin, 200 miles north, Chen was cleaning out the dusty guest room, while Lena sat quietly with a coloring book. The cabin had no internet, no TV, just old paperbacks and board games that hadn't been touched since the 80s. Lena stared at her drawing a rabbit standing in front of a big house. Behind it, clouds and lightning. She colored the rabbit in soft pink, then paused. "Dr. Chen," she asked softly. Chen looked over. "Yeah, sweetheart. Are the bad people gonna find us?" Chen knelt down beside her. "We're very far from where they think we are. No one's going to hurt you." "But what if they want my daddy more than the truth?" Chen blinked. "What do you mean?" Lena shrugged. "He said the truth is dangerous. But I think they'll come after who he loves." Chen froze. The logic of a child was painfully clear. "They won't come after the truth," Lena repeated, almost whispering. "They'll come after who you love." An hour later, Daniel's phone rang. Blocked number. He answered. "You thought splitting up would protect her," the voice said. "Blackwood." Daniel stood up from the gas station curb, suddenly ice cold. "Where is she?" "She's safe. For now." Daniel's fingers tightened around the phone. "If you touch her, I don't want her," Blackwood interrupted. "I want the files. You're the one who made this personal. She's a kid. And yet she's your leverage." Daniel's voice dropped. "You're a coward. I'm pragmatic. You were warned. You didn't listen. Now we're playing on real terms." Daniel stepped behind the station, away from any cameras. "What do you want, a meeting?" "No." "Then the next time I call, you'll be hearing her cry." Daniel's hand shook. "When tonight, midnight. Same beach where she used to walk barefoot. You know the place." The call ended. Daniel stared at the screen, and then he screamed loud and wordless and broken. At the cabin, Lena napped while Chen read quietly by the window. She never heard the branch snap outside, never saw the shadow moving through the trees. But the rabbit on the windowsill, the one Lena had left behind, had a small red mark on its ear now. Just a dot. A reminder. Back in the city, Tanya met with her contact at the Chronicle, a woman named Josie who had exposed 3 corporate corruption cases and survived a failed car bomb in 2018. Josie flipped through the documents, her face pale. "This is bigger than you said." "I know. If I run this, I get buried. You won't be alone. Someone already tried to hack my inbox. Twice." Tanya leaned closer. "They're not scared of documents. They're scared of the voice behind them. The one who won't back down." Josie looked up. "And if the voice disappears..." Tanya said nothing. By sundown, Daniel was back on the coast. He walked the shore for an hour checking for signs, footprints, tracks, anything. At 11:58 p.m., a figure appeared from the dunes. Blackwood. Alone. He lit a cigarette and stared out at the ocean like they were two friends meeting after years apart. Daniel approached slowly. "I don't have the files," he said. "They're already out." Blackwood shrugged. "Then why are you here?" Daniel's fists clenched. "Because you said her name." Blackwood turned. "And you believed me?" Silence. Daniel's heart skipped. "You don't have her," he whispered. "No," Blackwood said, smiling. "But you just confirmed she's still in play." Daniel's breath caught. He'd been played. Blackwood took a step closer. "You gave yourself away, and now we know where to look." Daniel lunged, but Blackwood was already moving back toward the dunes, and behind him, headlights flared in the distance. Too many. Too late. Every lie costs someone their life. The only question is whose. Daniel ran. His shoes pounded against the sand, every breath a curse, every gust of wind like a slap in the face. Behind him, the headlights carved through the dunes like predators. He didn't know how many men were chasing him. Didn't know what they'd seen or heard. Didn't care. They knew about Lena. Blackwood had baited him, and he'd taken it completely. The slip-up had cost him more than just a tactical edge. It had made his daughter a target. Again. His car was parked a mile down the beach. He veered left up a slope, cutting through a thin line of brush, and stumbled into the road. The Honda was still there. He jumped in, slammed the door, and peeled off tires, squealing. He didn't stop driving until the ocean was gone from his mirrors, until the roads turned quiet, and the world blurred into trees and dark sky. His hands trembled on the wheel. He had to get to Chen, now. Tanya was already packing when he called. "They're moving on her," he told her. "Blackwood knows she's with Chen. It's only a matter of time. I'll meet you at the fallback point," she said. "Tell Chen to move now." Daniel dialed again, praying Chen had service. She answered on the third ring. "Get out," he said. "They're coming." Chen didn't waste time asking how he knew. "We're gone in 5. Daniel clenched the phone. "Stay off the roads. Head east. We'll redirect from the church drop." "Understood." "Chen. Protect her." "I will. With my life." But it wasn't enough. By the time Chen and Lena reached the gravel road outside the cabin, the path was already blocked. A black SUV, silent engine running. Chen cursed under her breath. "Lena." Back seat. Floor. Lena obeyed, crawling between backpacks and duffels. Chen slowly reversed, heart-pounding eyes locked on the vehicle ahead. Then headlights flashed behind her. Another SUV. They were boxed in. She reached for the emergency phone. Static. Signal blocked. Chen breathed once. "Stay down, sweetheart. No matter what." She opened the glove compartment, revealing a small, cold steel pistol, something Tanya had insisted every member of the team carry. just in case. The men got out. 3. Tactical gear. Unmarked. Chen stepped out of the car. "No one needs to get hurt," she said. One of them raised a hand. "We only want the girl." Chen raised the gun. "Then someone will get hurt." The moment froze. Then a flashbang arced through the air. Light, sound, pain. Chen hit the ground hard. Lena screamed. Daniel arrived at the empty cabin 20 minutes later. The door was open, the inside tossed. Lena's coloring book lay torn on the floor. A chair overturned. No blood, but Chen's phone was cracked in two on the porch. He stood in the doorway, breathing like a hunted animal. "Blackwood," he whispered. "You son of a Tanya," pulled up behind him in her car. She took one look at the cabin and went cold. "They got her," Daniel nodded, throat tight. And Chen, no idea. No body, but no sign of her. Tanya stepped in and surveyed the room like a crime scene. "They want leverage. This isn't the end game. It's a move." Daniel's fists clenched. "Then let's make our move." Back at their safe house, a gutted church basement in Santa Clarita, they regrouped. Tanya pulled up the last ping from Chen's backup tracker. They didn't go far. Last known signal puts them near Ridge Valley. Industrial zone. Daniel pulled out the burner with Blackwood's number. It was still active. He texted one word, "Trade." Blackwood responded within minutes. "Midnight. Come alone." Tanya paced. "It's a trap." "I know. They'll kill you. I know that too." "Then why go?" Daniel's voice dropped. "Because every lie costs someone their life, and this time it's not going to be hers." At 11:47 p.m., Daniel arrived at the warehouse. Dark, silent, one light burning overhead. Inside, Lena sat on a chair, blindfolded but breathing. A man stood behind her. Not Blackwood. Daniel stepped in, hands raised. "You made your point," he said. "Let her go." The man gestured. A case was brought out. "You hand over the originals. Everything. And she walks." Daniel nodded. "They're in the car. I'll go get them." He turned, and that's when the shot rang out. He dropped. Not hit. Chen. From the catwalk above, she fired again. Chaos exploded. Tanya burst in from the opposite side, guns blazing. Daniel lunged for Lena, tearing the blindfold off and shielding her. Men shouted. 2 fell. Blackwood appeared screaming. "Burn it all." Then the sound of sirens. Media vans. Police. Tanya had leaked the location. Live-streamed the feed. The world was watching. Later, under floodlights and helicopters, Daniel held Lena tight. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. She smiled. "I told you you'd find me. The world doesn't care who tells the truth, only who controls the story." The flashing lights painted the warehouse in red and blue. Outside, reporters shouted questions. Cameras rolled. Helicopter rotors thundered overhead. The truth was out. At least, part of it. Daniel sat on the back bumper of an ambulance, Lena wrapped in a thermal blanket beside him. Her face was pale, her eyes distant. She hadn't spoken in 10 minutes, just kept her tiny hand gripping his tightly, as if he might vanish again. Tanya stood nearby, giving a statement to a local news crew. Her words were sharp, deliberate, not too much, not too little. Just enough to confirm Monroe, the vault, the tapes, and the connection to legacy institutions. Nothing about Blackwood. Not yet. Chen emerged from the warehouse with a medic trailing behind her. Her right arm was wrapped in gauze. She walked over, slow but standing tall. "They'll spin this," she said to Daniel. I know. They'll say we staged it, that we faked the recordings, that it's a stunt. Daniel looked up at her eyes dark. Let them try. But even as he said it, he could feel the story slipping. By morning, national outlets had picked up the footage. Monroe's voice. The black box. Headlines filled every feed. Secret Marilyn Monroe tapes revealed in stunning raid. Truth or hoax, Monroe confession, divides experts. Whistleblowers linked to mob ties, FBI operations. But for every article that asked real questions, there were 5 others muddying the water. Fake tape AI experts say audio could be deepfake. Hollywood stunt connection to failing auction house raises eyebrows. Conspiracy circus, Monroe the mob, and manufactured martyrs. Tanya slammed her laptop shut. They're doing it, she said. They're smothering it with noise. Daniel paced the motel room. Lena was asleep on the bed, rabbit clutched tight. We showed them the body, he muttered. Now they're arguing if it ever lived. Chen stood at the window watching a van across the street that hadn't moved in hours. Truth doesn't matter unless people care. Daniel turned. People do care. Not enough, Tanya said. Not when the story is shaped faster than facts can be verified. The world doesn't care who tells the truth, Chen added, only who controls the story. Hours later, the counterattack came. A single document leaked across social media, not by their team, not by any of them. It was a scanned confession unsigned on old studio letterhead, implying that the Monroe tapes were fabricated in the 1980s as part of a blackmail scheme. Another leak followed a surveillance photo of Daniel receiving money, actually just gas money, from Tanya captioned, "Whistleblower for sale." Then a third dropped sources claiming the vault had been installed decades after Monroe's death, disproving its authenticity. None of it true. All of it viral. The media flipped. Chen threw her phone on the bed. They're winning. Not legally, not physically, but in the narrative. Tanya paced, muttering under her breath. They're deploying coordinated assets, social private media opinion writers, all paid, all planted. Daniel stood by the sink, staring at his reflection. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a man unraveling. We have to show them everything. Tanya turned. That was everything. No. We still have her voice. The rest of the tapes. The ones we held back. You mean the one that names names is? Chen hesitated. You sure about that? Once those names go public, there's no walking it back, Tanya finished. Daniel looked at Lena. They didn't care when it was just truth. Maybe they'll care when it's power. That night they uploaded the final tape. A direct recording of Monroe. Sobbing, terrified, and naming names. Not just politicians. Not just producers. CIA, FBI, studio heads, even foreign diplomats. It was a landmine. The reaction was instant. Social media exploded. Major outlets hesitated. Some refused to run it. Others ran it with giant disclaimers. But people were listening now. And then in the midst of the firestorm, Blackwood responded. He released a full background report on Daniel. Twisted facts, edited video clips, accusations of domestic issues from a decade ago, eviction notices, old arrest records from protests. One forged document implying he took a payoff. It was character assassination, precise, strategic, lethal. The networks that had praised him 48 hours ago now called him a hoaxer, a criminal, a failed father exploiting his daughter for fame. Lena saw it on the motel TV before anyone could turn it off. Why are they saying that about you? she asked, voice small. Daniel turned off the screen. Because they're scared of what I know. Are you bad? No, he whispered, kneeling down. But they need people to think I am. She nodded slowly. I know you're good. Daniel hugged her, trying to hold together what pieces he had left. The final blow came at midnight. The FBI arrived. Not with praise, with a subpoena. Tanya opened the door to 6 agents. She tried to delay, stall, argue. It didn't matter. They seized the laptops, the drives, even Chen's medical notes, all under the pretext of a national security threat. Daniel wasn't arrested yet, but the message was clear. Back down, or be buried. Later, in a silent motel room stripped of electronics, Tanya stood in the corner, arms crossed. They're going to bury this in court. Years of litigation, discrediting witnesses, sealing evidence. Chen nodded. They want time. Time to erase, rewrite, scrub. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, Lena curled beside him. So what now, he asked. Tanya hesitated. We go analog. Daniel raised an eyebrow. We print. We publish. Physical copies. We hand deliver. Libraries, journalists, academics, churches, anywhere people read. Make it too big to erase. Chen added, and we protect ourselves. No more separation. We stick together. Daniel looked down at Lena, asleep again. You know they'll never stop, Tanya said. Then neither will we. Rain fell lightly on the pavement as the team stood outside the brick building. It was just past 6 a.m., fog rolling in the streets of Washington, D.C. Quiet, except for the distant hum of early buses and the occasional runner. Daniel adjusted his jacket, the USB drive in his hand, tucked deep into the lining. Chen held a satchel with 10 sealed envelopes, each containing printed transcriptions, scanned vault photos, and the Monroe Confession. Tanya had the same package. So did the others. No cloud drives, no broadcasts, no tweets, just paper and footsteps. They were delivering the truth by hand. The first drop was a university library, old stone-faced, open early for researchers. Tanya placed the package in a returns bin. No fanfare, no drama. The second went to a tiny church in Southeast, where the head pastor, a woman with sharp eyes and a long memory, took the envelope without a word, only a nod. The third went to a retired civil rights lawyer who once helped expose a Pentagon leak in 1971. Then another, then another. 12 deliveries, 12 cities, 12 hours. They had no illusions this would save them, but it would spread. A spark could be extinguished, a dozen embers across the country, harder to kill. By nightfall, they regrouped in a quiet Airbnb on the outskirts of Baltimore. The house smelled like cinnamon and cedar. There were no TVs, no signals, no watchers. Daniel sat by the window, Lena curled asleep in his lap. She'd barely spoken since the motel, still processing everything. He didn't blame her. She was 9 and she'd lived through something few adults would survive whole. Tanya poured whiskey into a chipped glass and passed it to Chen. Neither said anything. What happens now? Daniel finally asked. We wait, Tanya said. And we hope, Chen added, we listen. Daniel looked out the window. It doesn't feel over. It's not, Tanya said. But it's out there now. It can't be pulled back. He looked down at Lena. She's the reason I didn't quit. You didn't just fight for her, Chen said. You fought like her life meant something, like all our lives do. Daniel looked back at them. They wanted to convince the world that Marilyn Monroe was just a cautionary tale. A tragic footnote. She wasn't, Tanya said. She was a woman who saw too much and tried to survive it. And she mattered. We all do, Chen said quietly. There was silence again, not heavy, not hopeless. Just full. Later that night, the story hit print. Small, independent outlets. Underground papers. Activist newsletters. A few brave journalists who didn't care if they lost their jobs. The documents were real. The tapes authenticated. The voices confirmed. Public opinion shifted. Not fast. Not all at once. But enough. The public didn't riot. But they did question. Congress called hearings. A senator broke ranks citing moral obligation. Names named in the tapes began to release statements, denial, confusion, feigned outrage. One resigned. Another vanished from public view. Truth wasn't loud. It was patient, like water against stone. Over time, it changed everything. Months later, Daniel stood at the same auction house where he had bought the Monroe Beach house. It was boarded up now, shuttered due to legal investigations and its assets frozen. He didn't come to gloat. He came for closure. Inside, the walls were stripped, the lights gone. But the space was familiar. Lena walked beside him, a little taller now, hand in his. She looked around, curious. "This is where you found her?" she asked. He nodded. "She was like us," Lena said softly. "People tried to silence her, but she kept speaking anyway." Daniel looked at his daughter. And now everyone hears her. Outside, a group of tourists passed by, unaware of who was inside. Daniel smiled. Some stories aren't meant to stay hidden. Some voices are too true to erase. He bent down to Lena. "Promise me something." She looked up. But never stop asking questions, even if no one likes the answers. She nodded. "Promise." They walked back into the sunlight, hand in hand. Somewhere in a small-town bookstore, a woman picked up a paperback titled The Vault of Silence, The Monroe Truth. She flipped through it, read a few lines, then looked around. The clerk smiled at her. "You won't find that one on bestseller lists." She smiled back. "Maybe not, but it found me." She took it to the counter. And in the quiet hum of that store, another ember caught fire.